This next session is going to be all about how esports offers destinations a very big opportunity, especially with the likes of any of you CS players out there will have heard about, Katowice and the relevance of CSGO within Katowice and things like that as well. So we're going to be diving into cities and countries that have been doing esports right. On the panel today for our moderation, we've got Wayne from London and Partners. And our panel consists of Alex from ESL Pro League, Olafur from Iceland Esports Association, Neil from MPN Global, and Ed from Sub Nation. And this session is indeed sponsored by London and Partners. So I hope you enjoy.
Thank you, everyone. Really, really good to be here today with our illustrious panel here. Really amazing opportunity to hear about your locations and probably give some advice to our audience. We'll probably run through questions towards the end, certainly. So we'll be speaking for about 30 to 35 minutes, then we'll certainly take questions from the floor, so have them ready. And to begin, let's just do a quick introduction. If you start with yourself, Ed.
Yeah, thank you, Ed Tomasi. I'm a co-founder at Sub Nation. We are an agency that works with brands and destinations with Metaverse, Web3, and strategies for destinations and hosting events. I'm also the co-chair of the Greater Raleigh Esports Local Organizing Committee, which essentially is a regional organization that looks to market Greater Raleigh as a destination for global gaming events, as well as supporting regional and local.
Hey, London, how you guys doing? My name is Neil Johnson. I'm with HPN Global. HPN Global is a global site selection and meetings management company. And what we do is that we try to help secure hotel accommodations, meeting space. We negotiate F&B, AV rates, for anybody that has traditional conventions and meetings. In this sense, we are now pivoting like the whole world is towards gaming and esports. And so now we are kind of doing that for different gaming and esports clients. And actually for this show right here, we were the ones that secured the hotel rooms, for SAM and ESI here. Previous to that, I was with 3 different US-based destinations, with Los Angeles, with Las Vegas, and with Washington, D.C. And in my role there, I helped to initiate our gaming and esports footprint in the space.
Yeah, hello, my name is Olafur Steinarsson, but you can call me Ollie, tough name. I'm from Iceland. I'm the chairman of the Icelandic Esports Association. Over the past 4 years, we've been building a foundation for esports in Iceland, focusing a lot on the youth activities. So we now have over 3% of kids training under educated coaches across the country. We've also recently played host to some of the biggest events in esports. So I've been working with the government and government subsidiaries there on securing those and ensuring that everything happens properly. And I'm also the co-founder of the Esports Coaching Academy.
My name's Alex Inglot. I'm the commissioner of the ESL Pro League. The ESL Pro League focuses on CSGO, which is one of the leading esports titles in the world, as you probably all know anyway. And the Pro League is effectively now a joint venture between ESL, which is a very well-known international tournament organizer, working hand in hand with 15 of the biggest teams or brands in the space, with the likes of G2, Liquid, FaZe, Fnatic. And our focus is on trying to look after the CSGO space, grow the CSGO space, and maximize the opportunities and alignments that are available when so many powerhouses are working together for the benefit of this particular game. Where it will go in the future, don't know, but so far, so good, 2 years in.
Brilliant, thank you. So we'll kick off with a rather simple question, quite straightforward. You've all worked with a variety of destinations. What are some of the biggest challenges you come across when working with new or existing destinations?
I think for new destinations, it's education, right? There's certain resources and limited resources for destinations to understand how this whole ecosystem works and what their place is in that ecosystem. I also think return on investment expectations is a big challenge for destinations. They need to understand why they're doing it and what that return is going to look like for their destination, because every destination is different. For existing destinations, I think sustainability and cadence of events is something that is a challenge for them. And then I think diversity in game type is another challenge, because there might be certain destinations that have a good market for fighting games, and other destinations that might have they're a good destination for something like a CS:GO. And for the destinations to really understand that they might have a great market for one, but they should also be looking at other game types is important. And I think it's challenging for them because they look at it sometimes as a sport, and esports is unlike any other sport, right? I think we all know that. So I think those are the challenges for the existing ones.
And we'll come back to the economic side. There's a question for you on that. But Neil?
I think for me, I was the destination. You know, I was Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C. And for us, you know, some of the challenges were really identifying who we are, who we were, what we brought to the table, and really leaning into that, you know. And so, case in point, when I was with Las Vegas, we were like, we are the entertainment capital of the world, so we want to focus on high caliber, high touch points, and we focused on that exclusively, to where we hosted EVO every year, the fighting game championship. We hosted DreamHack Masters, a CSGO tournament. We hosted Ninja Vegas. We hosted the NBA 2K's championship. So everything was bigger, all in, you know, with Vegas. When I was with DC, it was a completely different deal. It was like we were an emerging destination, so we had to sit here and look like, how can we play in this space? And so some of the things that we did is that we sponsored the local NBA 2K and Overwatch team to get awareness. But then the other thing was like, we have over 250 colleges and universities in the DC, Maryland, Virginia backyard. We all know that gaming and esports thrives when you've got a younger dynamic out there. So we leaned into that. And in 2021, in March, we built a collegiate esports conference, a regional one, from the ground up, participating in Rocket League, Overwatch, and League of Legends, with an eye on Super Smash Brothers, because we're an FGC community. And then when I was with LA, it was kind of just organic. The majority of the teams are based in LA. The developers are based in LA. A lot of the organizations that represent the talent and stuff like that is based in LA. So it was more zeroing in on E3, the second largest, you know, conference in the world behind Gamescom in Germany. And then it was like leaning into the lifestyle that is gaming and esports in Los Angeles. A couple of other quick things I think you kind of need to look at. I think you need to really look at buy-in from leadership. Does leadership completely buy into gaming and esports? And in particular, do they buy in on a long term? Right now, everybody and their mom is looking at gaming and esports, but are they sticking with it? And the pandemic really tested everybody's patience. You know, I had some destinations, you know, that I worked with that were all in. Others, the pandemic was like, hey, our doors are closed, no business is coming in. Do we really believe in this thing? Do we really believe in this product? So I would say leadership, and are you in it for the long haul? Then the last thing I would sit here and say was just community. Getting everybody, community partners, and building in. The more budgets you can tap into, and the more people that you can kind of get as an advocate and ally in your destination, the better.
And excellent point there on leadership, and I think that's been a general topic for today as well. So we'll come back to that, and actually what cities, destinations, countries can do in terms of leadership to get this back in. But Ollie, if we come to yourself, what's been those challenges?
So, I mean, coming from Iceland, which is obviously a much smaller market, having gotten these events, or potential to get these events in the middle of the pandemic as well, a lot of it was about being known as a potential destination, right? And I feel like being proactive there is something that a lot more locations can do. And it's not just being proactive in terms of vying for existing events, but building out your own events like Neil was describing with the collegiate conferences, right? When it comes to the actual bidding process and making sure that you land those events, you need to highlight what makes you unique. And at the end of the day, we aren't talking about traditional sports events here, so I would say a lot of the kind of non-material benefit matters less, and it's more about making it make economic and logistical sense, right? So building up a good infrastructure with government and making sure that you're able to provide a service as a location that makes economic sense for those businesses that are coming there to do this part of their business is something that is a challenge in many places when you're dealing with people in government or in high-power positions that don't necessarily understand or appreciate esports. So kind of coming back to the education point that Ed mentioned, and for us it was really good because through the kind of initiatives that we had been running with youth esports, a lot of the people that we were approaching had a positive correlation, between esports and participating in that in their mind already because they saw what it looked like on the front lines in Iceland, which made a lot of those conversations a lot easier to have rather than just like, yeah, we want to, facilitate visas and hotels and venues and do all these things for people, 250 players coming from all of these different countries, and we want you to put all that work into something you don't believe in or don't appreciate. So I think that goes into it as well.
Perfect. And we'll certainly come on to Iceland's story because there's some really interesting points there, which I know we spoke about earlier. But Alex, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think, there's the usual kind of infrastructure, practical checklist. Do you have the hotels? Do you have the stadium? Do you have the connectivity? Do you have the travel hub facilities in terms of railways or airports? Do you have the local fan base? Because no one wants to play in an empty stadium. The sponsors don't want it, broadcasters don't want it, the fans, other fans don't want it, the players definitely don't want it. So considering that 50 to 75% of your fans are probably going to come from the local space anyway, you need to, as our friends said, you need to understand which is the game that's going to resonate in your local area, because otherwise it's just going to fall flat. But for me, I'd echo what Neil mentioned, which is this, it's a consistency in a competitive landscape. So what I mean by that, when I talk about competitive, there are still countries and cities that think that they've come to this early. And they think that they are, hey, I'd love to do your event. And you're like, get in the queue. Like, there's a lot of people who have want to do these events, who have done these events, who've thought about these events. And you get sometimes there's still a lot of lazy cities, regions, countries who think that they can walk in and take these events. And it's just not the case. And even if the existing events don't seem to be in these high caliber, top tier cities as most people would think of, they have built up a pedigree, they've built up a relationship, they've built up a passion and a reliability that is very difficult to shake. I'll give an example. We signed an agreement as the Pro League to host in Malta. Malta is usually very proactive and very forward thinking when it comes to technological industries. And they wanted to host our league, but they signed an agreement just before COVID came. And obviously, what are you going to do when visas and travel is such a challenge? But Malta said, we will continue to sponsor your event. Even though you won't host your event in Malta, just activate, show clips and show footage and show Malta, and we will pick you up once you are ready to host. And we redoubled our agreement with them just a few weeks ago. We're going to be with them for the next 5 seasons, so 2.5 years. And that kind of commitment through the tough times, that commitment through the long haul that Neil was referencing, that could be a lot more attractive for tournament organizers than your sparkly bright light cities who think that they can just walk in and claim it on the back of their reputation.
Feels like a challenge to me there, representing the city on the stage. No, I can assure you we're doing a lot of work in London. I can see some smiling faces in the audience. So watch this space. There'll be some significant changes coming. So a bit of a shameless plug from me. But if I could come back to yourself, Ed and Neil, in terms of, as a destination, I can say this as representing London here, there's always a push for economic benefit. what sort of advice would you give to destinations like myself or rights holders to make sure that economic benefit is shared equally and everyone, receives a good chunk of that?
So I firmly believe that destinations need to figure out the calculation of the economic incentive, how they will value that economic incentive. Many destinations right now are using a calculator, and that calculator is based off of hotel rooms or visits. That's not all that should be involved with evaluating the economic incentive. Within the destination space in the world, and I've come to learn this because I came from the esports production side, being a former ESL alumni, the importance of having a destination understand that esports can enhance their quality of place is a tremendous value to both that destination and to publishers and esports producers, because they can deliver on that equally. So a quality of place is something where a destination can offer not just a great venue, they could also provide access to contractors that are local, that the esports producers don't need to fly in, but the producers trust in that local contractor. So all of these things can sort of equate to a quality of place where even the local corporations feel that, wow, my destination has great entertainment, and now we have esports as part of that package. I want to bring more employees to this destination. I want to hire more people that are in the esports world or that are interested in it, because they might be more tech-centric, and that destination might have a need for more tech-centric employees. So I think from a destination perspective, it's how they calculate the economic incentive. From a publisher's perspective, I think publishers need to ask more questions about how destinations can assist them with ticket promotion. Recently, Raleigh, North Carolina hosted the Apex Legends event. And part of the economic incentive that Raleigh had provided to EA, EA asked if we could direct some of that funding towards local promotions. And so the destinations have established relationships with local media, local partnerships, and that's what publishers, I think, are going to find in creating a higher economic incentive towards them, is to get the destination involved with not just hosting the event in a venue. It's more or less, how can you utilize the resources within that destination that's going to provide value in return?
I think for me, it's positioning. How are you positioning gaming and esports to the stakeholders in your destination? If you're positioning it strictly from an ROI standpoint, then you're as good as your last event. Hopefully that event is good, or there's no buy-in. Or if you haven't secured a major event, then that's even worse. But I think it's all in positioning. Are you positioning it as an investment in your destination? And the way I look at it is like when I was with Las Vegas, and particularly with MGM Resorts, we own the left half of the Strip. All of our activities were to secure the next wave of casino attendees. And then we can justify that because boomers are aging out, this and that, the third. Okay, cool, we need the next. So they can understand that this is what the next is into. But when I was with DC, how are you positioning that? And in DC, like I mentioned, we've got a healthy collegiate system out there, a lot of colleges and universities, and trickling down to high schools and junior highs, STEM and STEAM. We also have an initiative in DC where it's kind of like we wanted to really kind of take advantage of that and be a technologically advanced destination. So we partnered with the Fairfax County Economic Development Board, because there actually, believe it or not, is a shortage. There's a gap of 75,000 entry-level jobs that pay between 75 to 100K in the DC metropolitan area. So through gaming and esports, we did a job fair and allowed them to kind of get some of their stuff out. So one of the things I would say is just positioning. The other thing I would sit here and say is just working with community partners. I mean, we know that esports and gaming is filtering down to the high school level, to the elementary level. Are you bringing schools and schools into the equation? What jurisdiction is not going to be happy when they see elementary K through 12 students engaging and preparing for the next wave, the next level? Everybody is. Also, are you engaging your local economic development board? If you can sit down here and bring an event or two and show some movement, then the money comes a little bit easier, and it comes a little bit easier. And then lastly, I would sit here and say, you also have to account for the fact that a lot of developers and tournament holders and stuff like that are dealing with financial issues and cash surplus. So how can you help them get in front of additional budgets, get in front of additional people? Every destination out there has an office of film, entertainment, music, entertainment, rebate. So bring those guys in. Esports is such a global phenomenon and is streamed around the world. They have cutaways and cut-throughs of destinations. So anything that's seen live and that's streamed live and I can sit down here and be global, those organizations can put funds towards that. So I think it's definitely, partnering with those people that can multiply budgets.
Amazing. If I could just come to Alex and Ollie. Outside the numbers, the economics, the hard numbers, what sort of metrics do you use or see and to judge success and, like soft powers, so to speak?
It was pretty interesting, the difference in how those conversations happened in Iceland between MSI and Valorant Masters 1 and then Valorant Masters 2 and the World Championship. In the first iteration, a lot of the conversation on our side was around hotel nights and, the old calculations that Ed was referencing. But in the second turnaround, it was more about how can we work with Riot Games better to accentuate these events with Icelandic identity? How do we reach promotion of Iceland as a travel destination through these things? I mean, we know film tourism is a big thing, but esports tourism is as well and will be more in the future. So a lot of the kind of thought process that went into that on the second go-around was, we're now getting Iceland in front of hundreds of millions of people that probably didn't even know about Iceland or see it as a travel destination, and tourism being the main export of the country. How can we leverage that effectively? Another thing that we kind of evolved between those two events is our emphasis on things like, green energy, inclusion and diversity in esports, those values that Iceland represents. And I feel like being able as a small country to have a voice in those matters in a as big of an arena as the Riot Games World Championship offers was a huge value. And between events 1 and 2, government stakeholders and business owners and operators within the country also seem to value those more. And now, following those things, this has led out to work beginning in creating a dedicated office to handle gaming affairs and esports events in the future, so that we can aspire to be that long-term committed partner that Alex is referencing here, and this is what I believe is like the evolution of this, and understanding that value comes in more forms than just these guys paid X amount of dollars for X amount of hotel nights, and instead seeing the longer term value in being a participant in this evolution of entertainment that esports really is.
Yeah, I think from my side, obviously, my friends here have mentioned a lot of the key things which are financial and non-financial. Using the case study of Katowice, obviously they want 10 million spent every year from the people that come into the city. They have that financial target. I think everyone has that. But I think what I would categorize their, shall we say, soft targets would be engagement, envy, and emotion. So what I put under that engagement, you want to see those engagement metrics. Like Katowice, The tournament gets 20 million hours of viewing every year around the world. You can't pay for that kind of exposure with a demographic that is so critical to the future of entertainment, work, innovation, etc. You get, so that's the engagement. And you know, there are all kinds of metrics. 200,000 people every year go into the Spodek Arena in a city that has a population of 300,000. So that gives you a sense, again, on a physical basis, the amount of footfall that goes into this. Again, invaluable for Katowice, and perhaps unpredictable in 2013 when they first picked up this IEM event. It took foresight, took bravery, but they jumped in. So they tick the engagement. Then there's emotion. When we talk to Katowice, they often say one of the things that they love to see the most is how much this event now means to the players that win it. The tears that you see when these guys lift the trophy, to the fans, the passion, the colors that you see in the stadium. That takes a long time, that takes pedigree, building a legacy. And again, Katowice say they know that they're important because of that. You can put all the metrics and the numbers and the graphs you want, but when they see how much it means to the fans and the players, that's something you can't put a value on, but it speaks louder than dollars and pounds. And then the last thing is perhaps a little bit cheeky, it's envy. Katowice is now the envy of many cities around the world. We have major cities in America going, we want that. We either want that or we want something like that. Well, it's not readily available. We have President Macron of France saying he wants a CSGO major in Paris. Katowice have had 3 already. So how do you surpass Katowice in that kind of area? It's nice that Katowice, which spent the whole of the 20th century being the coal capital of the world, that brand doesn't work so well in this decade, in this century, and they needed to violently and quickly rebrand. And that's what the IEM event gave them. They now have a destination where people come because they want to be part of that, because they want to work in that, because they want to have that on their doorstep. That rebranding value is also critical. So yeah, I think some of these the tangibles are important. They always make for good graphs, but sometimes the intangibles, whether you capture it in an image, whether you capture in a quote from Macron, can be just as powerful.
Fantastic. Ollie, just to sort of touch on some of what you said about identity with Iceland, you've come from a very interesting story of, you know, hosting some of the world's biggest tournaments, and if you don't mind me saying, certainly punching well above your weight in that sense. What, you know, give us a brief summary of how you got there, but also, you know, what are the foundations that you've laid, and how will you be driving this forward to keep Iceland ahead of the curve?
Well, I mean, the COVID pandemic was definitely the major driver in this. But I mean, even before that, there was a concentrated effort on just reaching out everywhere that we could and saying, hey, Iceland is open for these events, right? That gets you, in the conversation. So when COVID hit and Iceland was particularly well situated in terms of low restrictions and so on, along with, the practical aspects of facilitating visas and being a relatively neutral country in those regards, we got into the pool of potential locations to explore. That then led to participating in a bidding process and, forced myself and the team over at Business Iceland and Meet in Reykjavík to really rapidly understand how to compete in a bidding war for these biggest events in the industry, and understand what aspects of our environment and services we could highlight. Now, we're lucky to have a big base in film and production, so we had local event companies that were well suited to help with a lot of this. And it didn't hurt that, somebody just invested in 200 square meters of LED screens that were now readily available within the country. So a lot of those things came well together, and once they brought in the first couple of events, the satisfaction with them was through the roof. Then before the second round of events, that was catching an opportunity. And I mean, not a lot of people know this, but the League of Legends World Championship pivoted from being held in China 5 weeks ahead of its start time to being held in Iceland, and it only took 12 hours, right? It was a call at 10 p.m. in the evening to a stakeholder in Iceland at Meet in Reykjavík and Business Iceland saying, hey, you know this meeting that we have to discuss how those past events went? Can we use it to talk about bringing in the World Championship instead? And by the following morning, there was buy-in from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to facilitate the visas, the Health Ministry to facilitate COVID testing, the venue, and everything else with the local event companies. And that's something that we're now looking to carry on that level of service and flexibility by continuing to build these bridges with the government and local stakeholders so that the next person that comes and says, hey, I want to do one of the biggest events in esports in the world on 3 weeks notice or 5 weeks notice in your country, or even 6 months notice, we know that we're able to serve them effectively. So for us, it's been how can we be the best potential partner that these guys can have. And it's meant a lot of learning, a lot of listening, a lot of understanding. And we've been lucky to work with Riot Games in that regard because they do have a lot of in-house expertise and do a lot of their own stuff. So they were able to guide us through that. Now, what happens next now that live audiences and everything is back? Well, it's going to be infrastructure building in Iceland. We've shown that we now have the technical capability of doing it. Now we need the physical infrastructure to properly accommodate those events. And the number of over 20 people in Iceland got jobs going on the road with those production teams because they did such a good job in Iceland. So that's expertise that's going to be coming back as well, and hopefully can help us keep us at the forefront of this in the future as well.
I'm just conscious of time, so this timer beside me is really counting down. But so we'll go through quite quickly the next few questions, so we can take some questions from the floor shortly. But Ed, you've been advising destinations like myself for a long time now. Have you seen a change in attitudes, particularly from emerging markets we know there's been a change to esports, but what's the biggest change in attitudes that you've noticed?
I think Alex had mentioned it earlier, and what I've seen for destinations is they're starting to realize that they're not the demand, right? That they're the ones that really need to proactively approach and develop a strategy that's attractive to the esports producers. From an emerging markets perspective, the challenge for emerging markets, I feel, is their platform for their local market. So emerging markets may not have the infrastructure to support PC-based type of esports program at the regional level, and that's not going to attract anyone from the national, international level. So I think a focus for emerging markets is going to be on the mobile platform, and that's going to help them build trust with esports organizers. And Alex, you had mentioned it before. It's like you want to be able to, as an esports producer, trust the destination that you're hosting the event at.
Thank you. Alex, Neil, I'll come on to you shortly, but I just wanted to check if there were any questions from the floor. We've got one here.
1, 2, 3.
I don't think the mic's on.
Well, first of all, thank you for the session. My question is, let's say that we have a country, a destination that never in the past hosted a major event or a league. What are the 3 top things they need to do for leagues and majors to start considering this country for one of their events? Or from the other side, what do these new destinations that never hosted an event in the past need to do to persuade you guys to go to an event?
I'll jump into that one. I think one of the things is that you have to really play to the uniqueness of your destination. Why are we coming there? What separates you from any other destination in your region or something like that? So you have to lean into what makes your destination special and lean into what makes your destination hot. I think the other thing, and I talked about it before, is because the investment put in with tournament holders and developers in terms of the production is so high, you have to sit down and be part of the equation in terms of helping relieve that financial stress. How can you sit down here and tap into other budgets, but also for your convention bureau or center? This is a 100% digital product. Your your internet provider cannot charge astronomical prices to sit down here and deliver a product, to remove latency and all this other stuff. that is above the norm because it's a digital product. These guys are technologically savvy. That won't work. You also have to sit down here and address the labor and union issues. A lot of destinations have union issues. Can you get around them? Can you bring your union in? Can you sit down here and stress the importance of a long-term relationship? This is going to benefit everybody. A lot of unions want their money, they want their people protected, they want them right now, you know, so you have to sit down here and really leverage the relationship you have with your unions, and then also and just other things in terms of a lot of places in order for you to get the venue, get the rental, you have to meet a food and beverage minimum. Everybody here, you have to meet a food and beverage minimum, AV spend, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I would add ease and celebration. What I mean by ease is, Ollie mentioned it, the visas when you come to issues around Russian athletes, visas when you come to COVID, all of these things can make and really disrupt events, qualifiers, hotels, fan access, quality of the event if you can't have all the best players that should be there, should qualify there. So if you can make that easier or less stressful for the tournaments, they will definitely thank you for that. And then the second issue is celebration. So when you go to somewhere like New York, we've been to New York to the Barclays Center, they'll say, here's how much it costs, here are the weeks you can do, get in, get out, and be thankful that you had an event in the wonderful, you know, Big Apple. And so the assumption is that we all want to go to these big cities, but that's not always that attractive. There is a place in the mix for that, but small cities that lean in, not just to their identity that Neil talked about, but really celebrate, activate on-street marketing. They create an expo around it. They do outdoor viewing. They do parties. They do pre-party, post-party. They do a business expo attached to it. Katowice built the expo, B2B expo, alongside the event and the multiple events. So they kind of extended the footprint from one event to multiple events to a B2B expo. So any city that really embraces the opportunity and has a whole plan of how the event is just the beating heart of a much broader activation and embracement of the opportunity is going to get a lot of thumbs up, I think, from tournament organizers as well as the teams that participate.
Thanks, Alex. We have run out of time, so please feel free to grab any of these guys and continue the conversation. Just another shout from me. As a city, London, we are making some significant changes. So you'll be hearing a lot more about us as a destination. So do feel free to grab me or a member of my team who's just sitting here, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. But if we could just put our hands together for our amazing panel. And thank you. Hopefully we can continue conversation outside.